So, welcome everyone to this June statewide call of the California Alliance for Clean Energy. It's our usual practice to record these calls. Please be aware that we plan to publish the initial portion of the call, including the presentation and perhaps some clarifying questions, but not the Q&A. We do not intend to publish strategy discussions. We also plan to have a non-recorded follow-up discussion next week at the same time for members only. Introduce our minute speaker in just a moment, but first I'd like to read our vision statement. The California Alliance for Community envisions a community-based, democratized system which promotes affordable, resilient, local renewable energy resources, prioritizing low-income communities that have historically suffered inequitable access to essentials such as affordable energy and healthy community. And again, I'm John Spigelski, a member of the steering committee, and thank you for joining us this month. And our topic this month is Turn's Fight for Affordable Clean Energy for All Californians. And our speaker is Toney, Executive Director of Turn, the Utility Reform Network. No speaker has resulted in a stronger reaction in our email chain than Mark. And but be sure Turn and Case have been on opposite sides of very important contentious issues, such as NEM 3.0 and the fixed fee. Um, we've worked a bit with Turn as part of the affordability campaign, and there are a lot of big issues in the state, and people, when we can work together, that's a real positive thing. So today, let's learn about Turn and their position on some of the current issues that are facing us in the state. With that, Mark, take it away. At the conclusion of the presentation, we'll have Q&As. If people are not muted, please do so at this time. And during the Q&A section, you'll raise your hands and then mute. Mark, take it away.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to have this conversation and to speak with the California Alliance for Clean Energy. And what I want to focus on is the theme of building a diverse movement to protect ratepayers and the environment. Let me say a little bit about myself. I am an organizer by trade, a sociologist by discipline, and a troublemaker at heart. I was hired as executive director of Turn in 2007. Turn believes in clean power, broadband, and phone services being treated as basic rights for all families. We're committed to the cleanest energy at the lowest prices, or as I like to say, we want the most green for the least green. We believe it's important that the goal of 100% clean energy must be matched with the goal of 100% universal utility service, regardless of whether people can afford to pay for it, which is why we are so committed to affordability. Now, I'm going to start by saying something about my commitment to equity and justice. I got to tell you that I'm really disappointed at how few Black and Brown staff and leaders I see today in climate justice work. I mean, it's been 20 years I've been here at Turn, and I still can't tell you how common it is for me to be the only Black person in a room talking about energy policy, a gathering to talk about climate policy, to talk about, and so it's, I really believe that is something we all need to work harder on. We need to work harder on inclusion of the communities, low-income communities of color who are really most directly impacted by the ravages of climate change, by the skyrocketing rates. We're not doing enough. I have worked hard to transform Turn from when I got here And it was basically a public interest law firm, mostly white male attorney staff. And, I was the leap of faith candidate when they hired me. And the reason I got hired is because the attorneys had complained to the board of directors that the decisions at the California Public Utilities Commission were being made less and less on the evidence and merits and more on political considerations like free market ideology. And they had a hard time figuring out how do you fight that in the CPUC proceeding? And the answer is you can't because it's not in a scoping memo. And then they were frustrated that even when they would have a big victory at the CPUC, utilities would run to Sacramento and get the law changed. So the board decided to look for a leader that had experience mobilizing grassroots communities, building broad, diverse coalitions, and leading public policy campaigns. That's how they end up with an organizer instead of an attorney. And my part of my key mission at Turn has been that transformation of Turn from a public interest law firm to a social movement organization. I come out of social movements, and our staff is now two-thirds women and non-binary, and two-thirds staff of color. And I believe that Turn is more impactful today than ever. We have not made any compromises in diversifying our staff, and our commitment to race equity and inclusion requires continuous work. We have outstanding race equity consultants that provide monthly discussions and trainings to our staff. We started that in 2021, and we continue to do it to this day. If you're ever looking for a consultant to do that with your organization, please contact me. I highly recommend it. Any organization will benefit from that, including Turn. So, my next topic I want to talk about is something I've spent a lot of time on. It is this big tent strategy. And to have inclusion not only mean from a racial, gender, income, all, what we often think of when we hear inclusion, but to think about how do we include constituencies that are outside of who we usually talk to? How do we do that? In other words, I've always been interested in the question, how do you build a majoritarian movement based on progressive principles? How do we get out of the echo chamber of talking to ourselves and to people who just think like us all the time? How do we get out of that? And how do we unify people around the concept of the public interest over the corporate interest, communities over shareholders? How do we unify communities left behind, Black, brown, rural, low income? And how do we embrace and reach across the political spectrum so that it's not just one narrow part of the spectrum? And I've worked hard on building a big tent campaign on clean energy affordability. So we've built a campaign for affordable power that includes CLECA, the large industrial, cement factories, large industrial users, big agriculture, farming conglomerates, the Agricultural Energy Consumers Association, We're working when we can with the large commercial customers who represent the University of California campuses, Kaiser Health facilities. We're working with the small business, uh, utility advocates. We've also brought AARP into this big tent. And when we have policy briefings, when we have legislative briefings in Sacramento, it's not just Turn talking about affordability. It's large industry, big ag, small business, seniors, all talking. Last time we had the Silicon Valley Youth for Climate Action there. So we had the youth represented. I just believe it is important to figure out how do we reach beyond our insular communities. Um, in terms of the political spectrum, I have worked hard to build strong relationships and win support for affordability policy reform from the city of Fresno, largest city in California with an elected Republican mayor. When we did candidate education on affordability issues this year, we attended the Democratic Party convention in February and the Republican Party convention in April. Okay, that's what it means to be Big Tent. I will also tell you that I have promoted affordability as a guest on iHeart Radio Network 5 times in the past year. I'm a favorite of Lifeline with Craig Roberts. Okay, that's important to me. I want to reach audiences that often are not reached by our organizations. So the next item I want to talk about is Proposition 16, because that's one of the first big tent campaigns that I worked on, where I brought this big tent philosophy. And a number of you on this call I met during Prop 16 campaign. I saw Woody Hastings earlier and just a number of you. I don't remember all of you, but a number of you I know were in Prop 16. And that was a great campaign. I mean, if it would have passed, it would have stopped CCAs and new public power, any chance of them even forming, any chance of public power expanding territory would have been done for. And I think that's what brought us all together. I registered and served as chair of the No on Prop 16 Political Action Committee. It was that important to me. And what I'll say, what we did that was so successful is that we built a big tent to undermine PG&E's credibility. PG&E claimed in their ads the Prop 16 committee is a, coalition of environmental, labor, and business organizations. Okay. We're like, right. So for instance, and I'm just looking up my all right. So we said, fine. Well, environmental was easy. Okay. We easily got the Sierra Club, League of Conservation Voters, the Clean Power Campaign, Local Clean Energy Alliance, Women's Energy Matters, Vote Solar, all these groups, they were the easiest to be no on 16. Then we said, you know, they got their IBEW 1245, right? The union that represents PG&E. Well, of course. So we said, fine. We ended up getting the California Federation of Labor, SEIU, Service Employees California State Council, AFSCME, California, the California Federation of Teachers, the California Nurses Association, the San Francisco Labor Council. So, in each category, here's their group of supporters in a category. Here's our, group. They said business. We said, okay. So they had the California Chamber of Commerce. So part of our strategy was to have conversations with local chambers of commerce to break with their statewide body. Okay. And so we ended up, I got to give credit to John Giesman. Some of you know John because John was really critical in the strategy and execution of this. We ended up with the Chamber of Commerce from San Diego, Orange County, Riverside, Santa Clarita, Folsom, Fremont, Santa Clara, and Stockton. No one 16. Okay. They have the California. Look at all these that we have. Um, we got the California Farm Bureau. We got the Agricultural Energy, these, business organizations. We got the California Manufacturers and Technology Association. We got the California Association of Realtors. You know how arch conservative the realtors are. They, in fact, were the largest single contributor to our campaign, believe it or not. Okay. That's a fact. I'm actually looking at the list now because I can't remember all this stuff. But I just wanted to give a picture. And then we decided, they bought so much media. They spent $48 million. Even in California, that can buy you some media. So we said, okay, we went after editorial boards. By the way, they got 3 editorial boards on their side to endorse yes on 16. We got 63. Who knew there were 63 news outlets in California at that time? This is 2010, okay? But and it meant we got the earned media for every one of them. So, I'll just wrap that theme up by saying we prevailed despite being spent 500 to 1, 48 million to 100,000. They got 48% yes. We got 52% no. And my summary, I liked how it says, never has a corporation spent so many millions to burn so many bridges. Okay, let me I have if it's okay, I have a couple more themes to go through. One is the affordability messaging wars. It's, my theory of change really rests upon if you want to win major policy reform, you first have to win the policy debate. You have to win the messaging wars. And it's something that we've put several years into so that by the time all this affordability, the legislators discovered affordability last year, I feel it was as a result of 3 years previously of having a disciplined messaging campaign where we repeated the term affordability crisis, where we linked record-breaking customer bills to record-breaking utility profits, where we talked about if the bills get too high, electricity, people are not going to want to invest in electric heat pumps and stove and hot water heaters if they think it's going to cost them more instead of less. We can't punish people for doing the right thing. We should reward them for doing the right thing with lower bills. Okay. So stuff like that. I will just say we in 3 years, the Turn staff did 340 interviews with media, 207 print media, 112 of them were television, and 21 were radio. I should know. I did the lion's share of them myself, but we have succeeded in leveraging affordability messaging into affordability policy wins. This year's affordability package, that Turn is the official sponsor, has 8 bills that remain alive. I'm not going to go through them right now. I'm happy in the Q&A to answer any questions about any of the bills you're interested in. I do want you to know that I am one of the biggest data center skeptics you will ever meet, and it's because I am an AI skeptic. Um, I am a non-believer. I refuse to worship the wizards of AI at the altars of data center. Unfortunately, I also believe that an untold number of data centers are going to get built despite my opposition to them, which is kind of why we're trying to regulate them. But I'm just worried that we're going to have a bubble. um, Public opposition is going to grow. And, I'm concerned about the exponential expansion and wealth concentration that this is causing, that this is widening the wealth gap, and that's bad for society. I think it's bad for the environment, and it's terrible in terms of cognitive decline in the capacity of humans to exercise critical analysis, artistic creativity, and independent thought. My final point that I want to theme is about wildfire policy reform. Um, that is a big topic that hasn't come out in writing yet. I have been involved since 2019 when AB 1054, the first wildfire bill, came out. Actually, an example of message discipline. I am good at slogans and I will repeat them. Not a dollar of ratepayer money unless it's matched dollar for dollar by shareholder money. Okay. I would say stuff like that over and over to the governor's office. And that had never happened before. And I was actually surprised, quite frankly, when that was the proposal. I did not say these things with the expectation it would happen. I said it because I'm hard headed and know how to repeat myself over and over again. And I know how to stay on message. But I was also involved in last year's SB 254. And the reason there was a wildfire study is because I insisted that there had to be one, and that it is not sustainable to keep coming back to ratepayers every few years and saying we need more money for this wildfire insurance fund. So I'm advocating that I'm pushing hard for action this session. 4 principles. One, invest in wildfire risk reduction to reduce the ignition and spread of all fires, not just utility fires. Part of the insurance crisis is not just utility fires. Two, protect ratepayers from unlimited wildfire liability and increased borrowing costs. Three, provide prompt compensation to wildfire survivors. And four, to establish the state as the insurer of last resort. So I know I've gone through a lot of stuff um, today, but I wanted to give plenty of time to have a conversation, and I'm open to any question that anybody has on any topic.
Thank you for watching this presentation from the California Alliance for Community Energy. This concludes the published portion of our monthly call. If you would like to participate in our monthly calls, including Q&A, please consider joining the California Alliance for Community Energy. For more information, you can see our website at cacommunityenergy.org/apply.